when Jobs debuted the iPhone back in 2007, he said it has this multi-touch interface which revolutionizes phones, and boy have we patented it. And that's very accurate. They certainly patented it. What they didn't mention is they bought up the patents that were relevant to it. Like they patented it. It's more accurate to say they bought the patents. It's closer to the truth. So you take a look. Like that's what makes your phone kind of easy. Your phone fun and kind of easy to use, right? When you want to open up an app or do anything with it, just all these tiny little gestures you make with your fingers on the screen, and it'll do all the smooth shit that we can do with our phones now. And that's actually, that touch screen sensitivity is actually based on something called capacitive sensing, which is based on the ability of the human body to actually carry small amounts of electricity. But that technology is super slick, and the world's been addicted to it ever since. Well, it's got to be said, most of that technology, again, was developed in the public sector. Like the biggest contribution to it comes from CERN, which is that European particle collider lab that's a couple mile across, and they use giant magnets to smash protons together to learn about physics that way. It's this giant, complicated-ass facility. It's very hard to operate. So they had to have the ability to run it from different locations, like remotely. And so they developed this smooth, touch-sensitive set of tools, this interface that lets you operate that phone with your little fingertips, Well, that's CERN. That's a publicly funded research facility. And if we look at other components of the phone, GPS, everyone knows that originates in military technology. The antennas themselves owe a lot of technology to the Signals Office, to the Army Research. And also even Wi-Fi comes from the University of Hawaii, so that the different research labs in the state could all share computer time with their main mainframe on their main island campus in Honolulu. And they developed Wi-Fi radio technology to manage that. So if you look at it, everything in your phone that makes it fun, from the internet connectivity to the GPS to the visual interface and many more aspects of it, like the battery and all these other features, they come from the public sector primarily. And it kind of makes sense from an institutional sort of economic perspective, right? If you're in the business world, you've got near-term profit goals you have to meet. You've got a stock price that Wall Street investors buy and sell. And if your stock price falls, that's how CEOs get pushed out by their corporate boards and get replaced by someone else. So your incentive is to make money today, not to take a bunch of money and put it into some expensive research lab that maybe someday will come up with some new technology. That's the thing about research, despite how it works in movies, like you're not usually trying to discover something, you're in the dark. You're doing research, you're looking at something, you're trying to learn about something that's not discovered. You don't know what's there. So when you do real scientific research or technological research, you often don't know if the path that you're on is going to be a good one, or if it's going to lead you to the technology you want, or if it's ever going to be useful, let alone if it's ever going to make money. But in the military, in the universities, in these research settings publicly, there you aren't under the gun of a stock price that you have to manage all the time. And so you can make those kind of commitments to long-term research. And bear in mind, it's not only slow-moving research, but it's expensive too. Scientists are expensive professionals. They use all this custom equipment. It's expensive. So it just doesn't make sense to expect the corporate world to do that basic R&D. It's expensive, and who knows if you'll make money from it. Now, on the other hand, the government can do that. But the business world does do some research, but it's not the fundamental R&D. Like once the National Institutes of Health has discovered some promising compound, the pharmaceutical industry will take that and turn it into a drug that can go into your body, and they'll take that military developed internet technology and make it into a slick ass sexy phone package, Like they're good at that level of research, but the main thrust of research of finding this stuff in the first place, there's a long record on where this tech comes from, and it's the opposite of what everyone says on TV and what happens in, Iron Man and other movies where the CEO does the research. The reality is, CEOs are senior managers. They don't do the research and stuff like that. Some of these billionaires, at least in tech, like Sergey, Brin and Larry Page at Google, actually did do some of the core technical work to develop their product. Bill Gates did some of that. Steve Jobs, not so much. Jeff Bezos, not so much. If you look at their records, which is all, on paper, and I look at it in big Tyrants, of course. But that's the thing there. At least the Technology is how everyone excuses the psychotic wealth and insane level of power that these bastards have. The reality is your parents' generation paid for that by paying taxes in the Cold War period. So people should think about that next time.
To hear the rest of this show and more, you can find us at This Is Revolution Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, we do a special live stream episode every Wednesday on the Zero Books YouTube channel. This is Revolution.